How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. We're going to be here for the next 2 hours talking pro wrestling. We're going to have Bobby Heenan on in a half an hour. Of course, we have Brian Alvarez here. And we do not have phone calls today, at least for a little while. So if you want to get your questions answered by Bobby Heenan, send us emails to davemeltzer@idiota.com. We're having a phone problem.
And this was not a scheme on our part. We really don't have phones.
And it wasn't a plot against James in Kentucky either.
It does seem like it, doesn't it, though?
Strange coincidence.
Yeah, it's just a coincidence. Anyway, so we're hopeful that we'll have the phones working by the second hour, but can't promise anything. So anyway, if you want some
And just as a note to all the callers out there, don't try calling right now because the line actually does work and you can get through, but you get through to Al's private line and you're not going to get on the air that way. So when the phones are fixed...
Right. Now
when the phones are fixed, we'll pipe you on through.
Now I'm going to get bombarded with 7,000 calls. And Alex in Puerto Rico, I know he's not listening. Please don't call again.
Anyway. This is 35 cents already today.
Okay. Let's talk about, actually, probably the biggest story is that last night in Broadcasting and Cable Online, they made mention that UPN is making attempting, or you know, the UPN's got like its affiliates convention going on right now, and they're talking about the fall season, and they're going to announce the fall season on the 17th. And one of the things that apparently has been talked about is that they would cut SmackDown to 90 minutes on Thursday, and they would use the other 30 minutes from 9:30 to 10 to introduce new shows with the idea that the WWF Lead-In, which is the strongest show on their network, would, introduce a new show to a large audience, and if the show's really funny, then people would actually watch it when it moves to its normal time slot. The problem with that, of course, as far as theoretically, that's a great idea. The application of that obviously doesn't work because
you need a new show every week, wouldn't you?
You could just do an existing show. And just go, hey, this, you know what I mean? But the thing is that, for the most part, wrestling fans, when wrestling's over, turn the channel or turn off the TV. I mean, it's like, it does help a little bit. There would be a little bit of a carryover, but not a whole hell of a lot. I mean, that's one of the things with the TNN ratings and everything like that is if you actually took the 2 hours of Raw out of the TNN ratings, okay, and you would think by adding Raw, did you see the thing I wrote about this, Brian, by the way?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, anyway, if you take the 2 hours of Raw out of the TNN ratings,
it's basically the same average, right?
Actually, no. Actually, believe it or not, it's down. It would be down from like last year. They averaged a 0.6 in prime time. Yeah, I know. And this year, if you take Raw out, they average a 0.55 in prime time. This is comparing April with April. So they're actually down, even though they've added WWF. And the theory is that all those millions of viewers that came to WWF would, just have the, be more apt because of commercials to watch, Dukes of Hazzard, whatever programming they have. Yeah, I know. Or tune in. Yeah, I know. In theory, that's the whole business reason why the networks pay so much money for the NFL, because the theory is that the NFL actually is a money loser in and of itself. But it's such an incredible promotional vehicle that it's considered a loss leader that you actually make more money at the other end. And when CBS lost the NFL many years ago to Fox for the idea that it was too expensive to carry it, they looked at the dollars and cents, and Fox got it, put Fox on the map, and CBS was dying, and then CBS spent, God knows how much money to get back in, and NBC was the one that was left out, and then they made the decision that what we'll do is we'll do it cheaper. We'll get the XFL, and that wasn't. Anyway, that's another story.
I think we've learned that there's a lot of theories in wrestling that you would think are good theories, but end up not being good in reality. And some theories that aren't even good theories that turn out to be really bad. Dukes of Hazzard. Dukes of Hazzard is like an old show that maybe a 30-year-old guy that watched it when he was a kid is going to want to watch the reruns of it, but you can't go and take Andy Griffith and put it on NBC primetime today and expect it to do a huge audience. The people that watch that are the people that grew up with it. You're not going to get 18 to 24-year-old wrestling fans that watch Raw to go, yeah, Dukes of Hazzard looks pretty cool. We'll watch that.
Hey, the commercials.
I don't even know what else is on TNN for them to watch.
You've been fast-forwarding through the commercials. I mean, all those We've Got Pop commercials, they talk about how cool Dukes of Hazzard is. Anyway, but
when you interview 10,000 kids, you can find 3 of them that say the Dukes of Hazzard's cool.
Okay, well, anyway, that's got nothing to do with any of this. But so theoretically, this is Okay. First of all, I'm pretty sure. I know WWF is pretty unhappy the story got out. I know that they also wanted UPN to basically say something that, in fact, that story is untrue, which UPN has not said yet, but they may say before the end of the day tomorrow, or they may not. My feeling is it's probably something that was discussed. I don't think it's going to happen, although we'll know on the 17th. And from the UPN standpoint, this is how I figure it. Okay. They have from 8 to 9:30. I was looking at it from their financials. From 8 to 9:30, they have their highest rated show, but they don't sell the ads. The WWF sells the ads to their own show. And UPN gets a percentage, so they do make some money off of it for their airtime. But it's not as much money. It's not even close to as much money as they would make if they were actually selling that time and there was a sitcom they had that was getting that kind of ratings, because also wrestling doesn't get the kind of ratings per person that the sitcoms do for all the reasons we've gone into a zillion times. So the idea is if they follow it with a sitcom from 9:30 to 10, one, they get to keep the ad revenue, all of the ad revenue from 9:30 to 10. And number two, the rating of that show in that time slot will be jacked up by wrestling fans, but the advertisers won't look, if it is, okay? But the advertisers won't look at them as wrestling fans, they'll look at them as sitcom fans, so they can actually charge full price for it, for that half hour. And they actually might make more money on that half hour not having wrestling, even though the ratings are lower, than by having wrestling. In fact, obviously that's the idea, is that they would make more money. Mm-hmm. And to do that...
Did you see the whole article?
Yes, I did.
Okay, yeah, it was like a really long article, and, the SmackDown note was like way down there at the bottom as a long shot, so I think that it probably is a long shot, but financially, maybe something that they've pretty seriously considered, especially if they haven't made a retraction yet.
Well, it doesn't, and the other thing is also, the idea is they have the leverage by, if WF agrees to cut back to 90 minutes, then they will pick up the XFL for a second season. So, when I was looking at that and thinking about that, I'm going it's like this deal. It's like, Vince, we'll take the XFL, but we're going to cut 90 minutes off of SmackDown. When I look at it from Vince, he's getting screwed on both ends. That's not an even trade. So anyway.
Horrible trade.
Yeah, so I don't think that that's going to happen. But, we'll find out. Let's see, what else do we got here? The, New Japan...
Should be something like Vince asks UPN for another 2-hour primetime slot for WCW, and in return he'll keep the XFL on that station.
Yeah, but they don't want it that bad, I don't know. The New Japan for the Sapporo Dome is going to, instead of selling tickets, if you buy a 20,000 yen or a 15,000 yen ticket, which is roughly, 20,000 yen is probably about $185, and 15,000 yen is probably about $130. If you buy those tickets, instead of getting a ticket, you get a CD-ROM cartridge, and you get to see all interviews with wrestlers and things like that. So anyway, that's the first time.
And that's how you get in with the cartridge?
You get in with the cartridge, yeah. You get a cartridge instead of a wrestling ticket. So that's.
You get to keep your chair?
No, you don't get to keep your chair. That's WWF. Let's see what else. We'll go to SmackDown in just a second. We probably should go SmackDown right now. Let's see. Okay, first of all, SmackDown. As far as dark matches, they made Yoshihiro Tajiri do a job for Ricky Banderas, which, I don't know. That was, a lot of people were unhappy with that one. For Heat, let's see, X-Pac and Justin Credible beat Kai and Tai. Hardcore Holly beat Haku. Jerry Lynn beat Dean Malenko. Heard that crowd was dead for this match. Billy Gunn beat Steven Richards in a total squash. Grandmaster Sexay beat Val Venus, which has to happen because they got that losing streak gimmick going. And then afterwards, Val Venus beat him up until Steve Blackman made the save, leading to the two dancing at the end. SmackDown, Paul Heyman does the commentary with Michael Cole. Taz is, I think that Taz had some sort of a family emergency that kept him away from TV Monday and Tuesday, so it's just a one-time thing. By the way, I did hear one other thing. This is from WWF, that the thing, the Heat show on Sunday with Hunter and Stephanie, that was a one-time deal, and they will go back to the regular Heat format with matches starting on Sunday. But they may do it again because the ratings weren't that bad. But it would never be like 52 weeks of it. They may do it on occasion because like we talked about yesterday, you probably could pull it off with Hunter and Stephanie. You might be able to pull it off with Vince McMahon. You probably could pull it off with Austin and The Rock.
Angle.
And maybe Angle, but then it's over. You couldn't pull it off with Undertaker. Then it's over. And, trying to do like 60 Minutes with a Big Show or Steve Blackman or Kai and Tai or something like that. I mean, that would be a disaster, and I think they know that. So They'll do it on special occasions, but that's not going to be. It's not a new format. Okay. Christian beat Chris Jericho. They're going to the Edge and Christian Jericho Benoit feud. And Edge and Benoit were both out there. And what happened? There was a collision. Jericho collided with Edge, and Christian got the pin with a schoolboy. The theme of the show...
Strange to move to that feud before they finished off Benoit and Angle.
Yeah, isn't it, though? Well, I guess the idea is that Christian, Edge, and Angle are all kind of the same team.
Yeah.
Yeah. The theme of the show, which had no main event, by the way, which would be interesting, was Undertaker just being totally uncooperative. He spit tobacco juice on Deborah, which is pretty mean. He dumped the tobacco spit over William Regal when William Regal told him. Basically, he went into Austin's dressing room, and he refused to get out. And Austin, instead of beating his ass and getting in there and beating his ass to get him out, Austin was going to Vince, somebody get him out. So Deborah goes in there to get him out. This is really going to just do wonders for Austin's drawing power. By the way, plug the Observer. In this week's Observer, I did an analysis of Austin's drawing power as a babyface and as a heel. And I don't care if anyone reads it listening to the show, but goddamn, if you work for the WWF, you better read it. Because there's an exclamation point at the end of that one, let me tell you. Anyway, back to this. Austin and... Okay, so anyway, so then they sent in Regal, and he spit that tobacco spit thing all over Regal's head, and Regal made one of those facial expressions. And it built up to the end of the show, which we'll get to. Well, we'll get to it right now. The show finishes with a big confrontation where Undertaker has Austin's leather vest and his title belt and challenges Austin to take it from him. And Austin again doesn't come out, but Vince comes out, and then Austin ends up coming out as well. I think after he blindsides Undertaker after Undertaker's taken over on Vince. And then they're beating up on Undertaker, and then Kane makes the save. So Kane, in fact, returned last night. So I guess that means that Hunter and Kane are back on for the pay-per-view for Judgment Day. Okay, let's see. Rest of SmackDown.
That arm healed quick.
I told you it would. Albert beat Raven. Apparently, they had two mistakes doing the Baldo bomb. How do you mess up that move?
That's a good question. I feel bad for Raven.
Yeah, all I know is that he messed up the move, and it took 3 tries to do it, but through the magic of videotape, I'm sure that we will not see the mistakes, because I've been to SmackDown when guys have missed moves, and somehow, and to their credit, they don't miss them on the show when it airs on television.
That's how we're going to be able to tell when things really start going downhill for the WWF, because they have been so damn lucky that all these screw-ups always take place on SmackDown and never on Raw. And in WCW, it was always the exact opposite. It always took place on Nitro and not the Tape Thunder show. And the day these things start happening on Raw, that'll be a bad sign.
Yeah, that'll mean the gods are not kind to Vince any longer. Let's see. Hardys and Lita beat Bull Buchanan, Goodfather, and Ivory, keeping the losing streak going. Eddie Guerrero ended up coming out and helping Matt. I think Matt did the twist of fate on one of those guys. I think it was Bull. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was Bull, because Bull was on the top ropes, and Eddie kind of got him to trip. No, not on the top ropes, but Eddie tripped Bull Buchanan, and then Matt pinned Bull Buchanan with a twist of fate. Rikishi and Triple H, so that didn't take long to happen. Chair shot DQ on Triple H. Triple H was beating the hell out of him.
I wonder if this was the same as the one with Test.
It sounded exactly the same.
Well, how about that?
And except he gave him more offense before the finish. Stephanie slapped Rikishi. Test ran in to make the save, but Big Show came out and cut off Test. So then anyway, Rikishi then recovered. And was cleaning house on everyone. Hunter got out of there. Big Show did not escape and got the stink face. He is not, well, it's his own fault, I guess, isn't it? You know, he says the right things, he just doesn't do the right things. That's kind of how it's described to me. Spike Dudley beat Crash Holly. Actually, that was based on an angle earlier in the show where Spike Dudley was trying to hit on Molly, and Crash was upset about it. So anyway, that led to this match. Edge beat Chris Benoit when there was a ref bump, and Kurt Angle interfered coming out of the stands using the Olympic Slam, or now it's the Angle Slam, on Benoit. And I heard that the Edge Benoit match was the best match on the show. And then the final match, which was Rhino and Bradshaw, which Big Show interfered, so Big Show got his heat back and chokeslammed Bradshaw, and Rhino got the win. So that was the main stuff from the the TV. This is the poll. What did you think of Raw? Very much, what am I going to say about this? People are really unhappy with Raw these days, with WWF. 5% excellent, 16% good, 21% average, 23% bad, 35% awful. Now, I could never say...
35%?
Yeah, I could never say that show was awful. I mean, it was... I could see average and I could see bad.
Especially with that cage match.
Yeah. I could not... I certainly could not see, like, excellent. I could see good, you know. I could see... But I mean, I would go with average or bad. Let's see. What else do we have here? The poll question for today is, do you think, this is actually stemming from the Johnny Valentine stuff, do you think that Wahoo McDaniel should be in the Wrestling Hall of Fame? A, yes, B, no. I probably should have C, never saw Wahoo McDaniel, but I forgot. So, anyway. That's what's going on, and we could ask that to Bobby Heenan when he comes on, because Bobby Heenan knows Wahoo McDaniel better than most, because they were in the AWA and Georgia and many other places at the same time. Let's see. Any other news before we start hitting emails?
I think that's it.
Okay. This is from Doug, who goes, I would like to say that I just found you and I'm happy about it. That's like long-lost relatives. I would like to know if WCW is going to make a comeback. The name will. The company's folded. If so, is it going to be run like it was before? Hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
Yes, if it is going to come back, I hope it comes back like it was before the days of the NWO. Like when I would watch, but it wasn't as good. Let's see, when the Horsemen were the mean group and they feud with Sting and Luger. God, I hope we don't see that again. You cannot go back in time.
If you're looking for the old Southern-style wrestling, don't hold your breath, because you're not going to get it. You're going to get WWF wrestling with WCW guys, with WWF production, and that's it. Probably some WWF guys, too.
If you're looking for old Southern-style wrestling, you know what you should do? Is you should get lots of videotapes, and on Monday night, watch them from 9 to 11, watch those old things, because you'll probably enjoy them a lot. But you're not going to get it in 2001 from anybody that's going to stay in business. I mean, they may do it for about 5 weeks, but we won't be seeing them much after that, because the mainstream isn't going to take it. Let's see. I
was reading an interview the other day. I can't remember who it was with. I think it was even on our website. But it was somebody talking about the difference between now and even 3 or 4 months ago was that both shows were head-to-head, and if you were watching Raw and there was something on Raw that you didn't like, you just switched to Nitro and watched something over there.
That was the king. Just so you know.
Yeah, Lawler. Okay, yeah. So now that there is no Nitro, when that horrible stuff comes on Raw, you're sort of forced to watch it. And I think his theory was that it's not really that much more horrible than it was. You just don't have an option when the horrible stuff comes on to watch something else.
He is so full of it. That is total
garbage. It's a decent
garbage.
theory, but if you actually watch the shows,
I watch
much worse.
I watch every show, and I never switch back and forth because I would watch them at different times. And I could tell from January through March of this year, Raw was so much better than it has been since April.
Yeah,
that's the difference.
And then it went way downhill.
And anyone, Lawler isn't watching the shows now, so he doesn't know. But I saw we saw all those awesome Raws for all those months, and then whatever happened, and we've talked about there's a lot of different things that happened all at once: losing The Rock, losing the competition, Austin going heel, forgetting to do.
It was WrestleMania, is what it was.
What WrestleMania? It's not WrestleMania. If it was WrestleMania, well, it seemed
like it really started going downhill fast at WrestleMania.
Okay,
it was like everything happened at once. You lost Rock, Austin turned heel, and everything just, they were past the peak. They drew their 65,000 fans or 67,000 or whatever, and it was like, okay, now what?
Well, I know people who 6 months before, and including some people in the WWF, had said that, business is going to stay strong, WrestleMania is going to be huge because it's Rock and Austin, and then it's going to go down real fast. Okay, and I did not disagree because I kind of thought that was going to happen anyway, just, naturally, because the business really was going down, and at the same time, Rock and Austin was a super hot issue that they were going to make tons of money with for sure. So I kind of, 6 months ago, I would have said that too, but what I did not expect was that the quality of the show was going to decline at the same time as this all hit, and no one foresaw that.
Yeah.
Where all of a sudden, instead, instead of us getting, like those, Steve Austin, Kurt Angle main events or type of matches like that, we get no main event. Or Undertaker and Kane are pushed on top, which, even if they get the pop, I mean, they're not going to give you the quality of the match, and then sooner or later, you don't end the show like we used to end it. Go, man, that was a great main event. I can't wait to watch SmackDown. It's kind of like, God.
Yeah, even if those guys work as hard as they can and have a good match for them, it's still such a level below what Angle was putting on and Benoit and, Austin and Rock and all those guys.
Yeah.
You just can't compare.
Okay. If the WF reads the Observer and other dirt sheets, I hate that term. Do you like that term, by the way, speaking dirt sheets? Do you like that term? I mean, you do write one.
I don't care.
Okay.
I guess I do write one. Everyone calls it that, so whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I actually, forget it. Yeah, no, I hate that term. Because I work way too hard.
Well, I don't think they're considering it like the dirt that worms crawl through. It's more like you dig up the dirt and it's in your sheet, right?
I'm just a news reporter. I did the same thing I did when I was writing for a newspaper, except I do it a hell of a lot better on wrestling because I actually, like it a lot more and have better sources. But anyway, why don't they listen and attempt to squash the political power Triple H has? It's not as easy as it sounds. I mean, did WCW do that with Hogan and Nash? And I mean, God knows we wrote about that one for a hell of a lot longer. Mm-hmm. When you're inside the forest, you can't see outside the forest, and you can't see how it looks looking into the forest when you're in it yourself. Look from the outside in, if you know what I'm saying. When you're, and it's the same thing with WWF. I mean, that's the reality of being there at the buildings. You get a warped sense. I mean, I'll never, one of the greatest things we ever did was do that Nitro from the Nassau Coliseum, because I was there with everyone else, and I saw that pop Hogan got, and I saw that awe that Hogan got, and unlike them who are there each and every week that are impressed by it, I was going like, this is kind of neat live, but you know what? I watch this stuff on TV, and they're going all wrong because he's not over anymore, and all those people that were popping for Hogan, they all got in for free, so it really doesn't matter if they popped or not because they didn't sell any tickets. So anyway.
Yeah.
But when you're in the building, you don't think, every one of these people is in for free. And, of course, a casual fan with a free ticket who doesn't really know much about wrestling, of course they're going to pop for Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair more than anyone else because those are the biggest names. But you can't build, a company that's on its way down, you cannot rebuild with Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. I mean, it can't be done. They were too old to be the rebuilding projects. Okay. This is from the Masked Threat, which is a stage name. We all know of the Hitman's hatred of Shawn Michaels, but what exactly was Brett's behind-the-scenes relationship with the other Clique members? I don't think he really cared one way or the other.
I don't think he so much hated Shawn Michaels.
At the end, he did. I think.
Once all was said and done, though, when you look back on it a few years later, I think his whole deal was, Vince was playing the two of us against each other, and I don't really blame Shawn as much as I blame Vince.
Yeah, you know what? He's pretty perceptive when he looks back. Yeah, I think today he probably doesn't hate Shawn Michaels.
At the time, I'm sure he hated his guts.
Yeah, in 97 he did. But before 97, he didn't hate him at all. I mean, they were good friends. I mean, one of the things that I remember, even in 97 that he was always unhappy with was that his feeling was when him and Shawn, they were the two most talented guys in the company and they were stuck in the middle because, there was the big steroid company and, guys that size don't get a push, so they were stuck in the middle having the best match on the cards, with the Rockers and the Hart Foundation and, whatever else. And then Brett was getting his Intercontinental role push. And then all of a sudden, they were talking about when we, if the time comes and we get on top, we're going to make this business so much better. They would sit in the car and talk about that. We'll do this, we'll elevate the business. And then all of a sudden, the time came and they got on top. And his basic feeling was that they didn't elevate the business and they didn't make it better. And Shawn had his own agenda, and it was kind of like, it's really too bad that all those things we talked about we were going to do, we never did. Mm-hmm. So. Let's see. This is Carrie who says, in my opinion, S.A. Rios needs to be getting more airtime. He's extremely underused. Yeah, he's super talented, and he's got that lucha style, and that's the kiss of death in the WWF as far as getting a push. Can you see Lita bringing him back in? No, absolutely not. It will not happen. He puts the Hardys to shame. I don't know about that, but and it pains to see me at the bottom of the card of the TV tapings. What do you guys think? I think, I was actually...
It's just the way it is.
Yeah, it's just the way it is.
There's some things you just got to accept, and that's one of them.
I am writing this because I just got into a verbal disagreement with one of my coworkers. I'm glad it was a verbal one, because if you got into a fight over this, over the validity of Bruno's broken...
prove these studies correct.
That's right. So, that's right. We need to start a campaign that if you're going to go to shows, no more misspelling, no more, like, really stupid letters to the PTC or Phil Mushnick, only really smart letters. And what else? What else?
No jumping onto the apron. No getting in fights.
No throwing things at wrestlers.
No throwing pop.
No. No getting into fights with your date, especially starting them, even if they deserve it. Even if they deserve it, because we need to improve the image of wrestling fans. And no really stupid
Hey, did that
letters.
count when you put the banana in that girlfriend's hair? Did you start that?
No, she did it first.
Okay, I'm just checking.
It was revenge. It was revenge, and that's not violence. That's just a banana.
Was it a banana death match?
Nobody got hurt. I mean, it wasn't like, I hit somebody. Then
maybe we should make, like, generic letters on the website that people can actually just steal to send to the PTC. Just form letters. Just sign your name to it and send it in.
I'm writing this because I got into a verbal disagreement with one of my coworkers over the validity of Bruno's broken neck. He claims it was all on angle because Bruno would not have been able to walk had he broken his neck. Was it real or not? It was very real.
You can break your neck and be, you can walk around afterwards.
Oh,
a crack in the bone in your neck is considered a broken neck.
Yeah. I mean, there are many wrestlers.
Completely paralyzed.
Yeah. There are many wrestlers on the circuit that have broken their necks. Bobby Heenan broke his neck. And he's, he doesn't wrestle anymore, but, it was a very serious neck injury. But no, it was a very serious neck injury, and Bruno, obviously, as he said on the show, came back too soon. But, whatever. Let's see. What other stuff do we got here? Where were we? Anyway, let's see. Okay, we did that. Let's see. I read that the relaunch of WCW might not start until September. It might not. Believe me, no one knows. And I mean, when I say no one knows, no one knows. Okay? Has the WF hired new staff to do WCW shows? In particular, have they hired new writers? No, they have not. Because I don't think they want to hire...
They're still looking at your resume.
That's right. All of you send them in. And if they haven't hired anyone yet, are they looking for people outside the business? Well, they actually have, what was it, Monsters.com? Is that the place? Where did they ask for them?
Hotjobs.com?
Hotjobs.com. Hotjobs.com, yes. Do you think that they will just be recycled writers and bookers from the past? I don't know. There's a lot of people who they're looking at. Let's see.
I kind of think once you burn out as a wrestling writer, you've pretty much burnt out for a while.
Yeah. I guess.
You never know, though.
Okay, now, what I'm going to do... Okay, this is from Scott Teal, who explains to me the reason he sent me all those MSG results was not to prove that there was actually wrestling in Madison Square Garden before Hulk Hogan, but because Kevin Sullivan worked on all these shows. Remember, I asked if... I said I thought Kevin may have wrestled in WF.
Oh, that's right, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, Kevin Sullivan wrestled undercards in 75 and 76 for the World Wrestling Federation, so that's the answer to the story. That's why... And we have got Bobby Heenan here. Bobby, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Doing really good. Looking forward to the show today.
Good, me too.
Bobby, we got tons of questions. But anyway, what, as far as what have you been up to? How do you like WrestleMania?
Oh, that was great. It was fun to see a bunch of guys I hadn't seen before. It was fun to work for a professional organization one time.
I consider that a knock. At
Come on, company. No, I mean, it's been so long since I left the majors and I went to T-ball, and then so everything was going good there. It was fun.
Did you get to watch a lot of the show, or just the match that you broadcasted?
No, I watched a lot of it. Yeah, I thought I was very impressed with it. Everybody was on their on the same beam, and everything was fine. There was no dissension in the back or anything. Everybody was laughing. Everybody was getting along.
Is this the first time? Is this the first time in your life where you've actually been at home a lot and not been on the road? I mean, at all?
Yeah, I haven't been on the road. I did the pay-per-view for WOW, and then I did WrestleMania, and that's the first two times I've been on the road since July.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you were doing the WCW TV though.
But I was just driving in downtown Atlanta, 40 minutes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I didn't have to go to the airport. I didn't have to fly. I didn't have to do anything since November.
Does it seem like weird to you? Yeah. Does it seem weird to you, having done that for 30 plus years, and then all of a sudden, it's a drastic change in life?
Well, if I'd have been wrestling in the 70s and 80s and this would have happened, I probably would have had to go find someplace else and find work. Well, you can't find any work in wrestling now because there is none. But at that time, when I didn't have anything to do and they just let me go home, I was having a ball because I was still getting my money and I was only working 45 minutes a week.
So you don't miss the travel?
I didn't mind that at all. I don't mind this at all. I'm not under obligation to anybody. I don't have to answer anybody. I can come and go do what I want. It's the first time since 1965 I've been able to do that.
Have there been things that you picked up, like television shows or
I
things
never sold a TV in my life. That was just a VCR they caught me with.
Are there things that you're doing that you never had a chance to do just because you were always busy on the road? That all of a sudden you go, wow.
Rather. There was a time in the 70s when you worked every night and you left the house at 4 and got back at 2 in the morning. I never saw primetime television or the news or anything.
Yeah.
No. I thought the Beatles were cockroaches.
I got a question to ask you. In fact, since we last talked, of course, Johnny Valentine passed away. We're going to talk about him a little bit. But, one of the guys that I guess when Johnny Valentine passed away that everyone associated with Johnny Valentine because they had a lot of matches in a lot of different places was Wahoo McDaniel. And I want to know, one of the things I thought about before you doing the show is Wahoo McDaniel, you were around him in AWA, Georgia, probably Texas, some other places. What were your thoughts about Wahoo?
Oh, I thought Wahoo was tremendous. I thought the guy was a great attraction. And he knew how to work, boy. He could get those people going. He did his little Indian dance. He could chop you. He could sell. He was great. I never had any problem with Wahoo.
Now, what about and how many times did you come across Johnny Valentine, and what were your thoughts on him?
Oh, I like Johnny. I knew Johnny back in the 60s, and him and I would ride some trips together. I managed him one night in Indianapolis against the Bruisers. And Johnny was just quiet, kept to himself, and didn't bother anybody. He was a good guy.
Hmm?
He hung around with Buddy Rogers a lot in the early days, and then the Graham brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Four of them caused a lot of trouble, I guess.
I guess. Were there guys back in that era and everything that you wouldn't go out with because you were afraid, not afraid, but you thought that you might be facing the police by the end of the night, so it's sort of this is not my cup of tea. These guys, you know what I mean, or guys that you hang around with that probably be less trouble or something.
Well, things were different in those days because nobody after the matches went to a bar. Everybody got back in their cars and they either went home or to the next town. Because most of the matches when I started at 8:30.
Sounds like the WWF now.
They start at 8:30?
No, Vince claimed that the guys don't go to the bar or do anything like that nowadays.
Yeah, the wrestlers of today don't go to bars anymore. They go to their... What do they do? They watch videotapes of their matches?
That's right.
And go on the internet.
Yep.
Not me. I go to the bar and we'll try to find something wounded. No, but guys just got in cars. They either went back home or they had another town to go to. So by the time you get out of the building at 11:30 or 12 and then go to a bar till 1, you couldn't make the next town or go home. So not many guys hung out at bars then in the territories I were in because we lived in the territory we were at.
We had an email from someone. I think I know the answer to this question because you've said it before. But anyway, of all the guys that you have managed, been around, who do you think was the most talented wrestler?
Ray Stevens.
I knew he was going to say that.
And I'll tell you who else had a tremendous amount of ability is Kurt Hennig.
Mm-hmm.
Kurt Hennig was very agile and had a lot of ability and, second generation from his dad and everything, had a good head on his shoulders. Paul Orndorff was a great athlete. I'll tell you, a really underestimated wrestler with a heck of a worker was Bob Orton Jr.
Oh, inside the ring, yeah. He was a great mechanical wrestler, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I managed a lot of good guys. There were just a couple that didn't do anything for me.
Who didn't do anything for you?
Well, it's kind of hard to manage the link. He told me one day, he said, what time's your plane tomorrow? We were in Newark. I said, my plane's around 9. He said, mine's at 8:30. He said, if you get there at 8, that's fine. I said, for what? He said, to get my ticket. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I don't talk. I said, well, you want to start talking in the morning or you're not going? I said, I'm one of your manager, pal. 15 minutes a night. You have to get your own tickets. He said, well, look at the way my hair is. I said, it's New York. They'll think you just had a lousy haircut. They don't care. But there was some. I didn't feel comfortable managing a guy like that. You know, nobody finds a guy under a rock and puts a rope around his neck and brings him to the ring. I mean, how'd I get him through O'Hare?
That's how Monsoon started. Remember the original story where they found him in Manchuria or something?
I don't know.
Okay, that was when they first brought in Monsoon to WWF in like '63. The story was he was like some giant from Manchuria who couldn't speak or anything.
Jungle.
Yeah, and then like eventually he learned English pretty quick and
he was
pretty
civilized.
Well, a year before that, he was in Toronto singing as Gino Morelli.
What made Stevens stand out in your mind as far as just a performer?
Well, a lot of things. He was a very close friend of mine, and we thought along the same lines and liked to party and laugh and do things. But Ray was just, we were in a six-man tag one night in Denver, him and I and Bockwinkel. We got in the ring and Ray said, what's the finish? I said, I don't know. He said, we two of us are here and don't know? I said, Nick knows enough for both of us. but Ray could just handle a situation that, sometimes everything would screw up. Ray would turn it around. He just had the natural ability once he got between the ropes.
We got a couple of email questions in here for you. Who was the best and worst person to travel with on the road?
Well, the best was Stevens and Lanza. The worst to travel with was probably Andre.
Just because of his size?
Just because of his size, and, I like to wear a hat when I go through an airport and just blend into the crowd and be able to get on the plane and not be bugged by people for autographs, which it's usually the way they ask you, But Andre he was just rude to people. He didn't like people. He didn't like people asking how big he was, how tall he was, and just every day with him was just an ordeal. You didn't know what he was going to do.
Mm-hmm. Just shorts. Because you had him at
he was very demanding. He wanted you to be with him at the airport at 6 in the morning. He wanted you to stay up till 4 with him, and you said no to him. He'd unscrew your head and drink you.
Bobby, on Live Audio Wrestling, this is from Thomas, who said that you said that Jimmy Valiant tattooed "handsome" on his son's head. Please ask Bobby if there are any repercussions of this, and was the tattoo ever removed?
No, I heard this. I haven't seen him for years, and I heard he has a son, and he named the kid Handsome. And the kid was about 9 to 10 years old, and he tattooed Handsome across his forehead.
His forehead?
His forehead. And to me, that is child abuse. For anybody to take their kid and allow a tattooist to do it, and for a tattooist to do that to a child, to me, it's totally against the law. You should do something about it. And I have nothing to do with the man. I will never have nothing to do with it. To me, that is disgraceful. I'm sorry. We have to look out for these children of this world sometimes. Like Barkley says, we're not role models, but we are. They look up to us. And sure, I didn't have the greatest character in the world either. I was a weasel. I was a cheat. I did this and that. But I didn't hurt a child or do anything like that. To me, I don't like that. That kid has to go through his whole life now. How's he going to get an education, a job, and going for a job interview and Handsome written across his face?
Oh, God. Imagine
that. On his ass?
Especially when, if you put it on top of his head, at least the hair would grow in or something like that.
Don't put a needle into a child.
Yeah.
With ink.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now with a magic marker.
Plus, on a 9-year-old's head, when the head grows, the thing's going to get even bigger.
You'll just say hand.
That's right.
Yeah, that is child abuse. You're right about that.
Yeah, to me, it's not right. It's not right.
What, of all the different eras that your career went through, what was your what was your favorite as a performer? Like, what style of wrestling do you like the most, just as a performer, and what era, I guess, and what style?
They were all different. In the 60s, everything was holds and everything was, guys didn't do a lot of high spots because a lot of times we worked in rings that were owned by the building. They were boxing rings. They were like falling on cement. And they were dirty sometimes, and guys just didn't do much. Well, in the 70s, everything kind of picked up. TV got hotter all across the country, and wrestling styles changed a bit. The equipment got a little better, and guys got in better shape, and you got younger guys. And there was a lot of wrestling in studios and stuff. And I liked it when you got through with a match, and then you'd come down and do an interview like with a Gordon Soley or a Gene Okerlund, and a guy would come in. You never knew what was going to happen. And then in the 80s, Vince turned everything around with the USA and TNT and all that, and Cyndi Lauper. And that was an exciting time because every place you went, everybody knew who you were, and they treated you with respect. They didn't look at you as a lonesome, no-good wrestler, a carnival clown or something. And a lot of people treated you with respect. We did a lot of stuff with NBC and a lot of stuff, different TV shows. And that was a fun time. That was a really fun time. The 70s was fun because you were in a car with your friends driving and laughing. In the 80s, it was fun because you were doing things you'd never done before.
Well, it was interesting. Like when at different stages of your career, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, how did you feel that, like, when you would go out to a restaurant or something, the way people looked at you? I mean, did they look at you differently in each era, or was it just still, oh, there's a guy, we see him on TV?
Well, in the 60s when I went out, I was Pretty Boy Bobby Heenan, and I had blonde hair, and not many guys said I was the first manager with blonde hair and sequins, and had a name Pretty Boy. So when I didn't go into a lot of places. I didn't go into truckers' bars. I didn't go into a lot of places where lumberjacks were pulling arms for beer. So I avoided it. I was kind of a drive-through guy, you know. So I stayed away from places like that. And then, you know, everybody got blonde hair then, and everybody started dressing in the late, 60s, the hippie style, and long hair, and everything changed, and everybody just accepted everybody's look.
What did you think as far as, like, the primetime wrestling show? Because I've been wanting to ask this question for a long time. For a long time, you did primetime wrestling, and you were obviously a heel, and you cracked a lot of jokes and that sort of thing. But it was in, a studio setting or whatever, and you had the match and everything like that. And then the one year, they moved to the studio with the audience there, and you were the same Bobby Heenan, and you were supposed to be a heel, but as you cracked the jokes, the audience was actually laughing at them. And I just thought it was really weird. And how did you respond to that? Did you think that was cool, or did you think it was like, I'm out of my element here?
No, I never cared one way or the other if they booed or laughed or whatever they did. I just did my style and did me. I always thought if I was out there for an hour and was a heel for an hour, that would get old after a while. Mm-hmm. And my personality is that everything in life strikes me as funny, except children and old people and death and stuff like that. But other than that, the absurdity of life is very funny, and so I just laugh at different things, and I just interject that in the wrestling, and if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. I just can't be a heel for an hour, or I can't be stupid for an hour. Mm-hmm. It depends what I'm watching and what I'm calling. Some things are so ridiculous you can't make sense out of it.
Yeah. Is there ever, and I'm,
like Ralphus, how are you going to talk about Ralphus?
Actually, I thought Ralphus was pretty funny, for a while there.
Yeah, but he gave you something to talk about. But then when he started getting his tail beat, you couldn't feel sorry for the guy. He shouldn't be in there.
It was kind of embarrassing at times.
Well, embarrassing his parents.
Now, didn't his head grow like when he got on television?
Couldn't get him out of the building.
That's what I heard.
His head was so big, yeah.
I heard like, he got on that TV and he thought like, he was like some big celebrity, and it was like, hey, now I got a question. Did Ralphus have women chasing him because he was on TV?
Well, I don't know that. I'm sure, I don't know if you could identify them as women. They were just large women with muzzles. I wouldn't go out with a girl that Ralphus was prettier than.
Were there ever, what promoters, of all the promoters you've worked for, were there any ones where you just go, God, I mean, this guy was like the worst, and any reason why?
Yeah, Nick Goulas.
And that's actually a pretty common response on that one, too. What were your experiences working for Nick Goulas?
I worked for him for 1 week in 1965, and he talked down to the boys, a lot of the young boys, and was abusive to them, the way he talked to them. And if the house was like $10,000, he'd tell you it was 8 to make you feel good, but it was really 6. He'd pay on. He'd tell you 10 to make you feel good. It was really 8, but he'd pay on 6. Mm-hmm. And he had no respect for you. He had no respect at all for the boys. And I only was there for 1 week and never went back.
You just drove home and that was it?
That was it. I said, this isn't the guy for me to work for. I like to work for people that are pleasant and polite, and you can talk to if you have a problem. I don't want some dumb hillbilly that thinks he owns everything just because he has 4 southern towns.
What? When you started as a fan and in Indianapolis, right?
Yeah.
So how young were you when you first started watching wrestling on television and going to the matches?
I went to the matches when I was 10 years old at Marigold in Chicago.
And tell us about your evolution of getting into the business, because you were carrying jackets and doing all those things before you, and then you went through pretty much every stage.
Yeah, I set the ring up. I carried jackets. I sold programs. I sold cokes. I watched the wrestlers' cars. Then I managed. Then I wrestled. Then I managed. And I did commentary. And that's what I've done all my life. Just every phase of it. I even refereed once.
before you went to WWF, I think the other place, obviously, I think you're most associated with WWF, but the other one would be AWA, 70s, early 80s, that era where you were in and out and more in than out, with Bockwinkel and Stevens and Lanza and so many of those guys there. And in many ways, I would say in the late 70s, early 80s, you kind of carried the territory on the heel side. I mean, it was like one of those things, except for maybe Jimmy Hart in Memphis. I don't know that I've ever seen a manager who really, basically, like if you were managing the main eventer, you generally wrestled on at least half the shows, if not more, underneath, a lot with Buck Zumhoff and people like that. Doing all those TV interviews. How was that period in your life?
That was a lot of fun. It was tiring though, because I'd go out and have a match with Zumhoff, and I'd come back and manage Saito, then I'd come back and manage Patera. 3 times a night sometimes, and then sometimes if one of them weren't there, I'd manage Nick, or I'd be in a 6-man tag or something. There was a lot of trips up and down the aisle, and I could have been compensated a little better, but it was still better any place else I could have been.
Mm.
But that's the way things were in those days.
So now, as far as WWF, the deal was they had their 3 managers, and so that was kind of not an option for you in those days?
Well, I talked to Vince Sr., and he had Blassie Albano and Ernie Roth. And it was just a territory then. And I talked to him right before he passed away, and I was going to Japan. And I knew Ernie had died, and I asked him about it. He told me originally he had no place for me because he had 3 managers, but he said I was next on the list. So after Ernie died, I called him, and Vince Sr. was sick, and I asked him. I used to call him every 6 months and talk to him for about a half hour. And then I called him that one day before I was going to Japan, and he said, Bobby, I can't use you now. He says, even though Ernie's gone, he says, something's going down, and I can't discuss it with you now. So when I went to Japan and came back, that's when Vince was taking over St. Louis and going every place.
So this would have been late 83-ish?
82-ish or so. And
okay.
I guess, because 81 I went to Japan, 83 I went to Japan. And I guess Senior was worried about if he was going to take talent from other territories, he'd have heat, because he worked with all the promoters. And he didn't want that. And Junior didn't care. He just wanted to go big.
Now, late '83, when you were in the AWA, and Hogan was really on a roll as babyface. AWA had become a real hot territory, and then Hogan and Dave Schultz, I think Gene Okerlund all pretty much disappeared at the same time. Went to Vince.
Mm-hmm.
What was the feeling in the AWA? And you went several months later. What was the feeling, with you? And all of a sudden, it's like, wow, the guy who, the top draw just left to go there, and they just ran a show in St. Louis, and all of a sudden, the wrestling world's about to change. Did you see where he was going right away, or did you? Okay.
When I first heard he was going to St. Louis, and then was doing shows out in L.A. and stuff, wrestlers always like to watch other wrestlers' tapes, other territories, to see what's going on there and see who's over and what's going on and how they do their tapes. And just Vince's tape was so much better than anybody else's. It really was. Even though he did it out of Hamburg and Allentown, it still had excitement. It still had more people than a studio wrestling tape. And when I heard he was going to St. Louis, because they were going down at that time. Sam was losing his health, and the NWA wasn't as strong as it normally was. And Vince just was there at the right time. And I said to myself, this guy's going to do it. He's going to really do it. And when Hogan left and Okerlund left, Schultz, it didn't matter. But when those two left, I said, we're in trouble, gentlemen. We're in trouble. So when I got back from Japan, that's when I called Vince. I said, do you have anything? He said, yeah, call me in the morning. I called him in the morning and gave me a starting date. I gave Vince my note, and I gave Vern my notice, and I finished out all my dates. So you pretty much, when you saw those guys go, you pretty much saw that, basically, like, kind of, do you feel like there was a handwriting on the wall? And Yeah. This was the same way I felt when they beat Goldberg here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you said that last time you were on the show.
Yeah, I said that. This is it, guys. This is it.
Now, were you surprised when you found that WCW went out of business? Because I know for a long time, everybody knew it was going to go down, but the feeling was it would never actually fold. And in the end, it did.
Well, I felt it would fold after whoever hired the guy that gave the word to beat Goldberg is the one that ruined WCW. He's got to take credit for that. I'm sorry. There's nobody else. People were standing outside with signs at 4 o'clock yelling, Goldberg, Goldberg. And then in front of 40,000 people in Atlanta, you beat the guy? That don't make sense to me. That don't make sense.
They beat him the week before, and then the Atlanta one. The Atlanta one wasn't that was the one where Elizabeth Elizabeth accused him of sexual harassment, and they kept him out of his main event. I think, wasn't that in Atlanta?
Could have been. I don't know anymore.
Those weeks straight. That was, but I remember when Nash beat him, it was the DC.
See, they didn't run a program where you'd know it for 6 months, where you could talk about it, remember it. They would stop things in a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't follow any storylines, so it was hard to keep up. And we were never, sometimes we didn't get formats until the first match was on, or sometimes right at the introduction. Sometimes we didn't get one until the first hour, first 2 matches were over. They just weren't professional enough, and they never clued us in on what was going on. So it was hard to do.
Now, a lot of times, they would shoot angles without telling you guys ahead of time. Is that because I remember like talking to some people and it was like usually an announcer kind of would know where the program's going so they can lead the audience.
Well, they tell us we want you to act surprised like it was a shoot. Well, in 35 years, if 2 guys in the ring shooting, I don't say nothing because you don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Because it never happens.
Yeah.
So, big deal. Somebody throws a guy's life out of a car. Somebody does this and that. I mean, and then you get the guy and you want him in a match? No, if a guy threw my wife out of a car, I'd do 2 things. I'd go to his house and wait for him, or I'd send him some cash. That's what you do. Did you ever hear of FOW, the Future of Wrestling?
Oh, yeah. That's in South Florida, yeah.
Okay, well, about January, I get a call from Discover Card that something's wrong with my card.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a Discover Card. So we checked. There's some guy there named Anthony Golden that has my name, Social Security number, and applied for credit. And the numbers he gave, pardon? And the numbers he gave were 2 phone numbers, and he had a post office box. And one of the phone numbers is FOW, Future of Wrestling.
Wow.
So we found out who's running that. We called the Secret Service. We called the FBI. We've been involved with the Post Office Department, and we found out one of the guys that may be involved, and we've talked to his probation officer. And so they're working on that right now, and they're pretty well aware who's doing it. But isn't that a shame? Somebody steals your identity?
Huh.
Somebody got paid.
Every month, an American Express comes up, or a Visa, and somebody applied for it under my name. So
somebody did that with Paige, remember?
That was Kimberly.
No, remember the guy
get a card and charge a bunch of stuff to you?
I didn't hear about that.
No, there was a guy. Remember, Brian? You know the story where the guy went to some town and said he was Diamond Dallas Page.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he impersonated him, and everyone bought it.
Oh, this guy is trying to go out and get lines of credit cards. And what I heard they do is they go out and buy merchandise. They get credit, and then they sell the merchandise. And that's how they pay the talent. This is all hearsay.
Wow. That's a new scam.
Yeah. But I worked too long and too hard in this business for some parasite to try to take my money.
Actually, there's some guys that just got convicted in California. Tiger Woods. He was impersonating Tiger Woods and charged up a whole bunch of stuff. The guy's going away to prison for life.
Oh, should.
Wow.
Before they go, give him to me. Let me slam his hands in a car door so he can never write my name again. Anyway, go ahead about the email.
Okay, well, this is from Kurt. This is on a totally more lighthearted subject. He goes, I finally remember Bobby getting stuffed in the weasel suit by Greg Gagne and Wally Carbo at the St. Paul Civic Center. I remember that many times.
I felt like a Johnson's brat.
Tell everyone about the weasel suit, and then we'll talk. I'll get to the rest of this email.
Well, the weasel suit was a match we had. You know, sometimes you have to lose your town. Sometimes you shave a guy's head. This one, they put me in a fur suit with a tail. I was in Peoria one night, and Greg Gagne put me asleep, and I was laying there on the side of the ring, and some mark ran by and pulled my tail off. He took my tail, that's what it. Bastard. But that drew money. That was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just remember
you were laying on your back.
I always wanted to put the suit on backwards.
No, but what I always remember, like with Greg Gagne's, it would always be that, he'd put you in the sleeper, and you would be asleep, and they would put you in the suit against your will, and then you would get up, and then you would look around, and then you would slip all over the place, fall down a million.
Yeah. Chase my tail.
Yeah.
tail was the same size as Greg. I didn't know what I was going after.
Oh, God.
I told him once to take a year off, work out real hard, and come back as a tag rope.
What was it like as far as working with Greg? You know, Greg, I always kind of felt that Greg was like a double-edged sword. It's like he got in, because
the size of one too. Or a knitting needle.
I mean, he got in because of Vern, but then at the same time, it's like, I mean, there was no way he was ever getting out of his father's shadow, ever.
Well, that is hard where you start, and especially with a man has done what Vern has done, all the championships he held in amateurs and stuff, and I don't know what it was like living at home with Vern growing up. I don't know if it was easy or hard, but Greg's not a bad guy. He's okay.
Do you ever, have you ever bumped into any of the old AWA guys from that period?
I talked to Rashke a lot. I talked to Brunzell a lot. I talked to Crusher every Christmas. I talked to Lanza every now and then. And that's about it. I talked to Bastien. Cauliflower.
How'd you like Cauliflower?
I loved it. You weren't there.
I wasn't there this year, no.
Did you hear how we started the show?
No, I don't think so.
Tanae and I, everybody comes there with suits on, ties. Well, Tanae and I were the hosts that night, so we wore tuxedos. So I had Tanae step out front with me in front of the podium. We stood there for a minute and just let the people look at us. So I told him, I said, doesn't this remind you of the top of Pat Patterson's wedding cake?
Oh, that's... How many radios did you break in your feud with Buck Zumhoff? And did Vern pay for the radios?
I only broke one.
Really?
He only broke that one on TV.
They just played it over and over again? I thought I saw it 50 times.
Yeah, that was it.
Just like Honky was on here and somebody asked him, how many guitars do you think you broke in your career? And he said something like 6.
No, AWA only had a budget for one radio. No batteries. No, we only had one radio.
What are your opinions on Killer Kowalski? You grew up watching him, didn't you?
Sure. He's a quiet man. I don't know him that well. I know who he is, and we say hi to each other, but I don't think I've ever sat down with Walter and had a conversation with him. He's always got that Kmart rug on, so I don't know. Walter, take it off. You're not going to do any good with or without it.
What are your thoughts as far as Hogan?
Now or before?
In the 80s, now.
Oh,
yeah.
I think Hogan was one of the greatest things that ever happened to this business. A lot of guys knock him, a lot of guys don't like him, but I remember when I was at WWF, the guys that knocked him were the guys that were always checking their booking sheets to see not what town they were in, but if they were on Hogan's card. And Hogan took care of a lot of guys. He helped a lot of guys out. A lot of guys think that he stabbed them in the back. I don't know anything about that. That didn't happen to me.
What about WCW at the end? Because I kind of thought that, I thought one of the problems with WCW at the end was that nobody would step aside.
Well, you see, David, I don't know. We were always sequestered. We were like OJ's jury. They put us in a trailer, or they gave us a dressing room someplace, and I never went to a dressing room and talked to none of the guys. And we always stayed in our trailer and just sat there and read the paper and killed time before we had to go on. And we never had any inner contact with none of the guys. We could go in the back. We could go in the dressing room if we wanted to, but everybody had their little functions going in factions, and they were all talking. I had nothing to do with any of those guys.
Plotting.
Probably, yeah. So.
Now, there was a period, and this is actually before the this would have been, before the Goldberg loss and everything started going down, where WCW could do no wrong. I mean, when that was happening, I mean, what were your thoughts? Because it was almost, they were almost amazingly successful considering their lack of organization. They hit on something big, and
I think the reason we got hot was because when Hogan and Okerlund and myself and Savage went to WCW, and then they started doing those vignettes about Hogan being old and Savage. Remember those?
Oh yeah.
And Billionaire Ted.
Pardon?
The Billionaire Ted.
The Billionaire Ted in the WWF.
Yeah, and I think what it did is it made everybody aware of where we were. So what they did is they started watching WCW. Then they started going back and forth, and then the WCW went to Disney, and that was a different look. And then they had all the luchadors showed up, and Hall and Nash showed up, and it just became interesting. I think people were clicking back and forth. And but they were lucky. They were really lucky. It wasn't. They may have planned it, and it may have worked for a short period of time, but for 83 weeks we were number one, and we should have been number one longer. But we just didn't have the. Whoever was calling the shots didn't do it. That's the whole answer right there. Whoever was calling the shots didn't do it.
To me, it was almost a miracle that Goldberg lasted as long as he did without being beaten or buried or sabotaged by somebody. It's almost a miracle.
Well, what I would have done is I would have never beaten Goldberg yet. He could have been 5,000-0. He'd have had something to talk about.
Yep.
I mean, if he beat anybody there, it wasn't anybody important, really. But you could have made this guy into something. He's Jewish. They never had a Jewish champion. I mean, he could have been great for marketing, for a lot of things.
And he got a lot of that, a lot of publicity for that.
Well, he should. Yeah. He worked hard. I like Bill. He was good. He worked hard. But I guess there was jealousy. Had to be in there. Common sense tells you when the people are cheering for a guy, you keep the guy. I mean, that's simple.
When did you recognize that Goldberg had something that, I mean, I'll ask you, how many guys, I mean, maybe Hogan, how many guys have you seen that had what Goldberg had, maybe Rock? I mean, how many, and you've been around for 35 years.
When I saw Ric Flair, when he started, he looked like Dusty. He had short brown hair and was about 300 pounds. And then he went to Charlotte. Then he had that plane crash. And then he came back and he lost some weight and he let his hair grow longer and had one of those beautiful robes made by Olivia Walker, who's passed away. And he just completely changed his look and appearance and everything. And I was very impressed with Ric Flair then. I liked the look. It was like the Buddy Rogers look. And then I was impressed with Goldberg. I was impressed when I saw him first come out. He stood there with all the smoke and the fire and all that. And I just said, he's got little bitty shoes on, like roller skates with Bob Backlund shoes. He's got no trunks on. He's got little... But I said, there's something about this guy. Look at his body. It moves. He's got energy. He's got charisma. And there's very few people come along like that, you see.
Because you were... I mean, I don't know how much of this was what you were told to do or you just recognized it, but I mean, I just remember in the commentary that you were really on the Goldberg bandwagon very early, probably before a lot of the fans were, and then, you know, mushroomed really quick.
Well, I just thought to myself, people are buying this guy, let's get this guy over. Let us announcers show that this guy means something. Let's show energy. Let's do what we can for our product here. Mm-hmm. And that's why I did what I did. Plus, he does bring it out of you. He makes an entrance to the ring, and the people are up, and you know, he was beating guys real quick, and he was doing that spear, and then he'd stand up, and he'd register, and he'd go for that big thing, and 1, 2, 3, and he'd stand up, the place went wild. If you weren't an announcer and couldn't come up for something like that, you shouldn't be there.
What do you think as far as, like, the WWF attempting to restart WCW? And do you, I mean, if you were in Vince's shoes, would you go out of your way to get Bill Goldberg? Because right now it looks like Bill Goldberg's going to be sitting on the sidelines for a couple of years.
If I was in Vince's shoes, I'd close down everything, throw Linda out of the house, and take the half of her money I got coming and leave. And leave my shoes. Well, see, I don't know. I don't have that mentality. I wouldn't want to be a promoter and have to worry about making 100 and some people a living. If there's only one company and you have no opposition against you, no competition, I don't know how good you can do. Only man that could change it around would probably be Vince with his thinking and his creativity. But, you know, if there's only one Hertz, you're going to have trouble getting a car. And I don't know if there's any money for the boys now when it's only owned by one owner.
Yeah, that's good. Everyone's going to have a very interesting next contract negotiation. Because they're going to kind of realize that there's no negotiation. It's kind of like, this is the offer, and this is the offer.
Take it or leave it.
It's Taxi and Louie. You want to drive it, you do. It's $half an hour.
I want to mention really quick that our phones are now working, so if you guys want to call in, you can call at 1-877-392-3299. So
I got to
go. Before we get to the calls, I want to ask this. Not really sure why. This is from Todd. I'm not sure why he's asking this, but anyway, he goes, I don't know why I'm interested, but I'm just curious what Bobby's opinion of Sean Mooney was. Sean Mooney, remember him?
Yes, I like Sean Mooney. He had a great look. He was a nice-looking guy. He was clean. He was dressed nice. He had that NBC announcer's voice and look. I liked him. But for some reason, I don't know if he liked it there or Vince didn't like him or something, but they parted ways. But I never heard the real reason about that.
He ended up anchoring in the regular news business.
Yeah, WR in New York or something.
Yeah.
I think people ask him about wrestling now, and he pretends like he's not Sean Mooney.
Well, I heard
like that part of his life never happened.
Well, I heard his resume doesn't say that he worked for WWF.
I've heard that too.
I'll tell you, remember when Vince had the WBF?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
You know who else auditioned for that no one knows about?
No, who?
Matt Lauer.
Really?
Yes.
To be an announcer?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Competitor.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was going to bring a Willard Scott and have him pose down.
We're going to start with Rick. Rick, what's going on?
How you doing?
Doing really good.
Hey, Mr. Heenan, it's a privilege to talk to you today.
How you doing?
I'm going to take you way back down memory lane. Was Markoff and Poffo your first managerial gig?
No, my second.
Now, who was your first?
The Assassins.
Oh, wow.
A guy named Guy Mitchell and Joe Tommaso.
Wow. And who was responsible for putting you in front of the camera with the Devil's Duo?
The promotion, Indianapolis, and Wilbur Snyder.
I see. And then from Poffo and Markoff, you went to Race and Henning?
No, no, what happened there, Larry had tore his knee. He was in Minneapolis, and I was in Indianapolis. And Larry hurt his knee, he tore his knee, so I went up for a month and managed Harley in like 67 or 68. Then I went in there in 69 for 2 years with Blackjack Lanza.
Right, this is the memories of my youth.
And then I went back from Minneapolis to Indianapolis with Lanza and Mulligan.
Right.
And then I went back to Minneapolis in 74 with Stevens and Bockwinkel.
So you went from the Blackjacks to Stevens and Bockwinkel?
Yeah.
Yeah, because wrestling was on UHF in Chicago. I'm talking about 67 to 70.
Ben's Auto.
Yeah, and Shock Electric.
Yeah.
And here's the real reason I called. Could you pass along any thoughts you might have on Bob Luce?
Oh, Bob Luce was a promoter. He was a guy that could go out there and get things done. He was a flashy guy, and he was a writer. He was a photographer. He could do it all. He was okay. I didn't have any trouble with Bob Luce.
Was he the booker in Chicago?
No. Gagne and Snyder and Bruiser booked it all.
Oh, I see. Because it was interesting because we used to get television out of Minneapolis and television out of Indianapolis.
And they kind of mixed them at the cards, right?
And and then everybody showed up at the amphitheater once a month.
Well, what happened was Fred Kohler used to be the promoter in Chicago.
Right.
And Fred Kohler and Vern Gagne didn't get along.
Uh-huh.
When Bruiser and Snyder went to buy Chicago, Fred Kohler said, "I'll sell it to you as long as Vern's not involved." They said, "Fine."
Mm-hmm.
So the last check paid to Kohler, Vern signed.
Mm-hmm.
So Vern had his TV, Indianapolis had their TV, and they split the card.
Right.
So no, what was Bob Luce's role?
He was like a Dennis Hill guard, like
so he ran the town, but Vern and Bruiser were the ones who actually put the show together. Is that right?
Oh yeah. Well, he had his TV show on Channel 44.
Right.
And Bruiser let him format it. But when it came time for the amphitheater or the TV shows you saw with the talent on it, the regular tape, he had nothing to do with. He just did the interview parts in the studios at 44 in Chicago.
How is it working in Chicago? I mean, Chicago was a really, I guess it always has been a great wrestling city. What was it like when you worked?
They shot it there, you know.
Oh, the Bockwinkel match, right?
Yeah,
in the 70s. Yeah. Oh, was it Vern Bockwinkel? I just remember because that made the newspaper when I was a real little kid.
Yeah,
that there was
someone in my press book here. It says all I saw was orange. A guy was sitting behind this kid, and he had a big fur coat on, and the finish was Vern and Nick. Nick beat Vern 1, 2, 3, but on the 3, Vern put his foot over. So I jumped up with Nick. The referee says continue. Nick and I hug. Vern drop kicks Nick in the back. I go to the floor. Nick goes in the ring. Vern gets the 1, 2, 3. I jump back in the ring, and I heard these pops like that. I don't know what it is. I've never been shot at. So as we went back from the dressing room, we get there, and there's Ray Stevens at the door. Ray said, "You guys okay?" I said, "Yeah, why?" He said, "They shot 5 people, and they brought in a woman on a table who had a bullet hole in her chest. 1 kid was shot in the neck, 1 in the thumb, and 2 in the arm. But the guy had shot down. He never shot to the ring. He never made it to the ring. He hit the people at ringside. And he only shot twice, but it went through the people." And David Condon, who was a big sports writer in Chicago, wrote the article. And the guy said he said, "I'll get Heenan down." And he rested his hand on the guy's shoulder in front of him, and he fired down to the ring, and the kid's deaf. And they never caught the guy. And they said they seen him there, but unless someone testifies that he did it or will say that, they're not going to mess with him. we had police around him at night in plain clothes. We'd sit there and watch him, but he never did nothing. They knew who he was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Then the week after, Mulligan and I come back from the ring, and the guy hits me with a ball-peen hammer. They bring the guy up to the dressing room, and they hold him up against the wall. They said, "Go ahead, Bobby, take a shot at him." I came across that dressing room 200 miles an hour. Just as I got there, Dusty kicks the guy in the groin, and the guy drops. I hit the wall. I told the cop, I said, "Get this guy out of here before he kills me."
Oh, my God.
I got 13 stitches in my head. My knuckles are back to my elbow, and I haven't touched the guy yet.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, those were rough days in Chicago. Because he didn't have any police protection. We had anti-train ushers. There were no barriers around the ring. Then Bob Brewster put a spotlight on you, so you couldn't see the people.
Did you ever work with Lou Thez?
Yes. In a 6-man tag in St. Louis. It was Lenza and I and Waldo Von Erich against Lou Thez, Jack Briscoe, and Whipper Watson.
Really?
Oh,
wow.
It was hell. But you know, it was 2 out of 3 falls in those days.
Yeah.
So Lou Thez was in the ring. We took the first fall on him or something like that. And I was just walking around the ring. I was inside the ring. And Joe Lewis was the referee that night, and Joe Tangaro. They used to use one referee in, one referee out. And I was walking around.
Did you 2 refs for a tag? I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, I was sneaking up behind the Lou Thez, not to kick him down, just to sneak up. All of a sudden, this fan came up, and he grabbed my ankle with his hands. And he had like hands like Danny Hodge. And he squeezed my ankle so hard, I thought I was going to black out. And I went to kick the guy in the head, and Lanza stops me. He says, "That's Lou's dad."
Oh, my God.
He said, "If you kick Lou's dad, you got to kick Lou." I said, "Oh, Christ." Somehow his dad was a shoe cobbler, and he had strong hands from pulling the soles off. When he put his paws around, he was over. But
his dad must have been like 100 years. His dad must have been 100 years old by then.
Yeah, it was in the 60s, late 60s. Yeah, he was in his 80s or so.
Late 60s.
Guy looked just like Lou with glasses.
Yeah, let's see. Late 60s. Lou would have been
mid
50s. So yeah, he was probably like 80. Yeah.
Sure.
Wow. What did you think of Dynamite Kid? And were you friends with him when you were both in the WWF?
Yeah, he was a good guy. He was funny. I thought he had a lot of ability. He took a lot of chances in there, and for a small guy, he did a lot of stuff, and he was strong and powerful, and I thought he was good.
Would you rate him as one of the top guys you ever saw?
No.
No?
No. No, a top guy's a guy that puts money in the seats.
Okay.
Puts asses in there, and I don't know if they could do that in singly. And as a tag, tags didn't draw that much unless it was an angle tag. They just didn't care about a tag team going against for a title or something. It had to be an angle, like Andre and Junkyard Dog against Stud and Patera, Something like
Patera,
that.
we had a bunch of emails about him. How'd you like Patera? Because you were around him a lot too.
Oh, he's okay. He's just loud. He's just an Olympic athlete and is big and strong. He's okay.
What was it like? Were you in the territory when they had that thing with Patera? You were with Patera and Saito in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
When they got arrested and everything. What was the feeling in the company at that point? Because they were 2 top guys in the company, and they both got sent to jail.
Well, everybody there felt sorry for Saito, and they just thought Patera had caused it.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess what happened that night was, this is just what I heard, that they went over to McDonald's to get some food afterwards, and McDonald's was closed at 10. And Patera said, "I'll give you $20 for whatever hamburgers you got left." And the guy said, "We can't do that." So all of a sudden, this 35-pound boulder came through the window. And I guess Kenny went back to the hotel, and this is just what I've heard, and I don't even know if it's true. And he went back to the hotel, and the cops came, and they asked where he is, and he's down there in that room, and the cop went down there, he knocked on the door, and Saito answered the door. Saito was on the phone calling home to Japan in his shorts. And they said, "Is Ken Patera here?" And he was hiding behind the door, and Saito said no. So they went back up to the lobby, and they told him he's not there, and the lobby says that he's in there. I saw him go in. Well, now I guess they got probable cause, so they call for backup. They knock on the door again, so Saito opens the door. The cop says, "We know he's in here. We want to talk to him." So Saito said, "Let me put my pants on." So as he went to shut the door, the cop put his foot in the door, and I guess Patera jammed the door open, and everything was on. And I guess a woman cop jumped on Patera's back, and he just flung her into the wall, and her dad was the coroner in town. And that happened right. Everything just happened right from then on. If he'd have just said I threw the brick through the window, it'd have been a $500 fine. That was it.
Didn't they go to prison for like 3 years?
Yeah, he got 8.
I think 2 years each.
3 in, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that must have been pretty. For both of them. Saito. I mean, he was. What I thought was amazing with him was, these guys were already in their 40s by this point.
Oh, what Saito got busted for was when the fight started in the room. Yeah. One of the cops went for his gun, and Saito grabbed him. Well, that's interfering with a police officer, and you can't do that. And he put his hands on him. But he was scared the cop was going to shoot Patera. Saito didn't really know what was going on. And he's talking to Mom at home about sweet and sour and a duck. He don't know what's going on.
How was Saito?
Good guy.
To you?
Yeah, good guy. It's like being with a huge cat.
I don't know. Why would you say that?
Well, he just looked like a big pretty cat to me with the eyes and the ears and everything.
Oh, and the cheeks and everything? Yeah. Yeah. What was the worst locker room fight you ever saw? Or did you ever see a good locker room fight?
I saw Billy Jack Haynes and Iron Mike Sharp fight in Detroit. And they stood there toe-to-toe and just kept punching. Finally, Iron Mike's hands dropped, and Billy Jack powerbombed him on the floor. And it was over.
Yeah.
But they stood there toe-to-toe and kept going at it. Other than that, you see guys, if they do get into it, they just yell in the dressing room. No one does nothing.
Yeah, usually blows over. Let's go to John. John, you're up next.
Hello?
Hey, how are you?
Hey, Brain, man. God, you just kick ass, dude.
How you doing?
Good. I had a couple questions. Were the rumors true about Okerlund picking up the 16-year-old farm girls?
Okay, see you later. Let's go to Matt.
Hey, guys, how's it going?
It's going pretty good.
Bobby,
Well, the reason Okerlund does that is he's not strong enough to pick up 18-year-old farm girls. What a stupid question.
Okay.
Bobby,
It wasn't a farm girl, it was a goat.
Just wanted to say thanks for all the years of entertainment and great catchphrases. The ham and eggers was a classic.
Hey, where did that come up from anyway, ham and eggers? Was that a term like in vaudeville or something?
No, I don't know. It came up to me one day sitting at a Waffle House. That's the easiest thing in the world to make. Ham and eggs. How can you screw that up? Easiest thing in the world. Everybody sitting there had a brown sock on and a white sock. I'm sitting with a bunch of ham and eggs. Everybody ordered ham and eggs.
My two questions for you are, one, what do you think of how they handled the Owen Hart situation going on with the pay-per-view?
Who handled the Owen Hart situation?
I guess Vince.
I'm not sure how he handled it.
Well, as far as going on with the show.
Keeping the show going.
Well, I don't know. What you stop the show at that? If Earnhardt would have been killed on the third lap, would they have stopped the race?
Some races have, some races haven't. It's gone back and forth.
I don't know. I wasn't there. Something as tragic as that, right in front of everybody. You want to send 20,000 people home sick? Do you want to disrespect the family? In their interpretation, I don't know. If it happened to my son, I'd probably want him rushed to the hospital. I wouldn't have cared if the show went on or not.
Right. Okay. And just any New York appearances you're going to be making?
No, not for a while. I haven't heard anything.
Alrighty.
I got an appearance on the 16th of May. I'm going down to Key West. Mickey J, myself. I think Duggan might be there, and the Terry Funk. Sir Oliver Humperdinck used to manage.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he's had open heart surgery, and he's not doing too well. So I'm going to take about some merchandise down there, and all the boys are going to go down to Sloppy Joe's on Wednesday, the 16th, and we're going to have a little auction and try to raise some money for Hump.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they're doing a tribute show too, right?
Pardon?
It's not
a tribute show too.
It's not a wrestling show. It's just a benefit, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Speaking of, would you have any updates on his condition? Have you heard anything?
Hump's?
Yeah.
They said they had him for surgery, and Mickey J called me the other day, and he said he didn't sound too well, but he says he'll be there, and he's alive, and he's talking, but he was just, sedated.
I think he had a new aorta put in too. I think.
I don't know. I'm not much into surgery.
Yeah. Let's go to Mike. Mike, what's up?
Hey, how you doing?
Good, Mike.
Good.
I have a question for Bobby. I was wondering, who was the favorite person you did commentary with?
Girl Monsoon.
Because that's kind of who I remember the best. You guys had great chemistry together.
He was very talented, and it really works if you really respect and like the guy, and we were great friends.
And who was the worst guy then?
Tony Schiavone.
Tony Schiavone. Why is that?
It's surprising.
Is it really?
No.
No, he was being facetious.
No, Tony doesn't like wrestling fans. He doesn't like wrestlers. He doesn't like the business. He's just there to get the money. And he's just not very professional.
So how come WCW kept him around so long?
Well, maybe if you work for nothing, they keep you.
And who's your favorite guy to manage?
Who was what?
Your favorite guy to manage?
Manage.
Oh, probably Stevens, Andre, the Blackjacks. I had a lot of fun with a lot of different. Rashke was a ball to manage.
Was Kurt Hennig up there at all? Or?
Kurt Hennig was, put him in there too. There's just so many people I managed. Like when I was at the WWF show in Houston, I ran into old guy manager Ernie Ladd. Him and I talked for about 2 hours. God, was it fun.
If you could manage anyone today, who would you want to manage?
Vince.
Vince?
Sure, no one's going to beat him.
Hunter.
I'll manage the family. The new Bobby Heenan family.
Is there any way you'd come back to WCW or anything?
Oh, sure, as long as the people that were at WCW aren't there.
Okay.
With a new regime, I don't care about the name. If the money's right and the workload is okay, sure. I'd go
Have they
anyplace.
offered you anything?
I'll even work bar mitzvahs. I'll work opening the supermarkets. I don't care.
Are you doing any card shows or anything like that?
No, I haven't yet. I want to get involved. What I'm going to do is I've taken all my all my stuff, my sequin jackets, the white tux I wore with the tails at WrestleMania 3, all my pictures, all my magazines, all my Raw shirts I used to wear that I had made, all my wrestling jackets, everything. I'm all putting that on for sale in a couple of weeks.
On eBay or?
I'm not sure. I got a guy working on it with me, and I'll know. Check my website, and I'll know in like 2 weeks where to send for all that stuff.
Is that like BobbyHeenan.com, or what's the website address?
BobbyTheBrainHeenan.com or BobbyTheBrain.com. I never write me, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But I got all my stuff for sale. I got all my memories photographed. I got everything on video. I got everything in my head. All the other stuff is just collecting dust.
Mm-hmm. What about last time you were on the show? You talked about maybe doing a book. Any more thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm gonna start looking into that in September. I'm gonna take the summer off, and then in September I'm gonna get more involved doing that. I got to find a writer. I got to find a guy that will distribute it. I got to find a guy that will back you on it. And I haven't really done much into that because I've just been busy doing nothing, which I've enjoyed. But I'm going to look into that.
Let's go to Sean. Sean, what's going on?
Hey guys. First of all, Dave and Brian, great show. Keep up the good work.
Don't they have a good show?
I'm a new listener as of like 3 days, and I'm hooked. Anyway, Bobby, first time you saw Shawn Michaels, and just what did you think of Shawn Michaels? Did you think he'd become what he did? And
the first time I saw him,
or what's your
first time I saw him was in the AWA.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and he looked like a male cheerleader.
And any thoughts of what is he like backstage?
I never had anything, so I never talked to him that much or anything to do with him. In the ring, a tremendous talent.
I agree.
Did you see him as a guy that would eventually be a superstar, or did you see him as a guy that was like a really good worker, but you felt this guy's just too small?
I thought he'd always be in tag team competition. I thought him and Jannetty. I thought Jannetty was a heck of a hand too, and I thought they'd always be in tag team competition. I never figured he'd get a push, but he did. And Vince saw something in him, and it worked.
Yep. Okay, guys, thanks a lot.
That brings something up. You've been around for 35 years plus, actually. But are there some guys that you would have seen, let's go back, anyone that pops into your head that you thought was going to be a bigger star than they were, or someone who just, was in the wrong territory, never got a break, but was more talented than maybe a promoter gave him credit for?
Well, Rick Rude was a guy like that. Rick Rude didn't have that many championship matches with Hogan that I can remember.
Yeah, the program just never happened, I don't think.
No. And Rude was always, he thought he should have the main events. He thought he should be champion. He always felt it should be him. He was very hard to manage. And
he was very outspoken about himself, wasn't he?
Pardon?
Very outspoken. he was a stand-up guy in a sense too. But I'm just saying, I don't know. You know what I mean? He was. I mean, when he thought he was being done wrong, he would say it. He wouldn't just be quiet and sit in the corner.
Yeah, but in this business, you can't do that. You can do that if you have a lot of money saved and you don't care. But, you yell at one guy and then that guy may be gone next week. But you may, the next place you go, he may be the boss there. So you can't burn any bridges. So you have to diplomatically handle it. And just come down and explain to them, this is business. I'd like to do this. Do you have an opening for me to do this? Can I work into this position? Well, no, not right yet. Well, then fine. When you can, give me a call and come back. But to sit there and keep working and bitching about things is stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any guys that you saw that you were surprised that they got as big as they did?
Yeah. Yeah, John Studd.
Mm-hmm.
John was a very, very, very nice man. But when you put it on paper, Andre the Giant against John Studd, my God, 7'5", one man 7 foot, all this. But when it came time for the Giant to give John bumps, John couldn't take the bumps.
Yeah.
If John wasn't 6'10" or 7 feet tall and 315 pounds, he wouldn't have made a dime. Because when it came time for the babyface to make a comeback on him, he just couldn't do it. And you've got to fly. You've got to entertain those people. You've got to make them, you've got to give them their money's worth. And John just was too big and not capable of doing it. And I wasn't surprised because of the size of him, but he was a lucky guy.
It was a natural rivalry because of the size. But I mean, I remember Andre the Giant, John Studd matches. I mean, most of them were hideous.
Oh, horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. And they were just, they want to see Andre do giant things to a guy. They want to see him press slam a guy. They want to see him do the same things the Road Warriors were doing to people.
Mm-hmm.
And John couldn't do that. So he'd get out there and pound. Andre choked the heck out of him, and that'd be it. Nick is going to be here tomorrow night.
Yeah, on the show.
You guys better bring a sleeping bag. I talked to Nick.
I hear he's kind of long-winded.
I talked to Nick one day on the phone. I had to shave twice.
Let's go to Brian in North Carolina. Brian, you're next up with Bobby.
Hello.
Hey.
My next
What's going on, dude?
You have to turn the radio off.
Okay, turn it down. Hello.
Okay, go ahead.
Your heart pacer down.
Okay, how you doing, guys?
Good.
Bobby, I got 2 questions for you.
Okay.
This has been really thinking about this for a long time when I've watched wrestling when I was younger. Who came up with the idea of you holding the leg of the Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 5?
Ultimate Warrior Wrestling.
You got me on that.
You don't remember?
Probably one of the agents.
Yeah. Vince didn't really. Vince really had nothing. Did he have to say on it, or?
Vince had to say on everything.
Yeah. What did the Ultimate Warrior think about jobbing that match?
I have no idea what goes through his mind.
He didn't say anything.
I have no idea what passes through those ears.
Another question is, why did they place you with Perfect?
Why not?
But I mean, how did that go? I mean, the Genius was his manager, and then you just became the manager out of nowhere.
And you have to ask why?
I mean, I don't know. He's the Genius. I mean, what was behind all that?
The Genius stunk.
He was pretty ineffective as a manager.
What? He was Savage's brother, right?
Yeah, he was.
Okay.
No,
he still is. Yeah.
And did you think Perfect would be bigger than he became? I mean, do you think he'd ever have a chance at the title?
Yeah, I did.
You did?
I did. I don't know what happened there, but I thought he would.
Okay. Well, thanks for your call.
Sure.
I can't ask you to do my bar mitzvah. That was 8 years ago, but I appreciate it.
Well, just send me some cash.
All right.
Okay, let's go to Dan in Chicago. Dan, what's up?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Hey. Doing good.
Hey, Bobby. What's going on?
Just waiting to hear what your question is.
I got actually one question for you. Stephanie McMahon Helmsley and Shane McMahon, what did you think of them when they were kids, and did you think they've become popular what they are now?
Well, you never saw Stephanie that much.
Okay.
And you saw Shane because he used to referee a little bit and pull the ring. But I knew they'd always have some place in the business because of their father and because of the way their father is and the promoter he is and the entrepreneur the way he is. He's going to get everybody involved. And it never occurred to me, but when I see it, I wasn't surprised.
Now, do you think, my other question is, do you think it's a good move for the McMahon family to be in the wrestling, in there where
on TV as storyline characters?
Yeah, as characters.
Well, that's two people you don't have to pay.
Oh, they don't.
I bet they're getting paid in some way.
You bet they are. No, I don't know. I think it's good if it works and the family likes it. If he forces his children to do it, then it's wrong. But they're not children anymore; they're adults. They can make their own decisions.
Right.
And I think it's their company too now. So I think it's a great thing to work at a job that you're making billions at, and to have your children involved with you. My God, that would be great.
Yeah, right.
Would you rather have your kid with you working on the street, you both delivering milk?
Exactly. By the way, Bobby, I'm your number one humanoid.
Well, thank you very much.
And we're
that's not a compliment, but I mean, go ahead.
Hey, Bobby Heenan will call me a humanoid. It's a compliment.
You're a humanoid.
Okay. Thank you. Where'd you come up with that, anyway?
Well, you just look at people. Just look at people. Look at them. Look at them. I mean, geez, some guys got those handkerchiefs from the cleaners in their pockets. This is stuff that don't work in life. They're humanoids. They're just part of life. When they were conceived at the drive-in, they didn't realize the kid was going to turn out like this.
That guy James from Kentucky, Bobby, if he calls, he's a humanoid.
From Kentucky?
Yeah, he used to call WW Live constantly. Humanoid.
Oh, my God.
You know when sex education has been abolished in Kentucky?
What?
The mule died.
All right, Bobby, you are the man.
All right, let's go to Tom. Tom, what's up?
How you guys doing today?
Lewis. Tom, sorry.
Bobby,
what's going on?
Got a couple questions for you real fast.
Sure.
My first question is, when you would do commentary with Gorilla Monsoon and you guys would yell back and forth at each other, like you would say something and then Gorilla would yell, like, would you just stop it? Was that because he was really mad at you, or was that just part of the show?
No, we had that rapport together.
Wow.
And it was just, we never rehearsed anything. We never went over, there was no script. We had a format which told us that which matches were and when we had to throw to break and what we had to talk about coming up WrestleMania something, but we didn't have finishes or nothing there. And no one ever told us what to do or say. It just clicked and worked.
Wow. And would you ever consider going back to work for the WWF or even the XFL?
XFL?
I'm not a football guy. I don't know that much about football. I don't think wrestling helps the XFL.
Well, neither did Jesse Ventura, but he's still doing it.
Well, that's
his
his
governor.
decision.
Yeah. How was Jesse?
Jesse was okay. When I went to WWF, I was supposed to manage Jesse.
And they ended up with Blassie, right?
No,
No. The first time he was with Blassie, and the second time he was going to be with you, and then he got sick. That's right.
He had blood clots in his leg.
Right.
So I went to New York, and then that night they pulled me in the dressing room and they put me with Stud.
Yeah. That's right. That was like your big grand debut. Was going to be at the Garden with Jesse.
You think if I'd have been with Jesse as governor now, I'd be the first lady of Minnesota.
That's kind of scary.
It sure is.
Let's go. It was scary enough.
Summer.
It was scary enough that night of the election. Let's go to Lewis in Arizona.
I don't hear anybody come up behind me with ice skates.
Bobby, it's an honor to be talking to you.
Thank you, guy.
And I'd have to say the best spot in those all those giant John Studd matches would be your bump over the top rope.
Well, thank you.
Oh.
You had to work for two guys there.
I love
three. You had to work for three guys.
That's right.
Because John was a -1.
Anyway, I wanted to talk to you about something that was really silly. You were talking about the weasel suit a little bit earlier. And I remember you ran that same weasel suit angle with the Ultimate Warrior.
In Milwaukee.
And in Milwaukee, and I think you did it on a couple other shows. Because I remember watching on the syndicated programming, I remember watching you and Warrior both cut promos about that. And I remember you were just going off on Warrior. And then Warrior just came out and snorted and sneezed and said weasel and walked off.
And that was the best match he ever had.
Best promo we ever cut.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting.
Bobby, and I think there's still a huge place in the business for you, and I hope you get to be doing more than the Cauliflower Alley Club. And I don't know. I hope you end up back in the mainstream again.
Well, I do too. It's up to them. I'm available.
Yeah, well.
Whether it happens or not, I don't care. Like I told my wife, 2 can eat as cheap as 1 if you don't eat.
See, that was the other thing I always loved. You and Freddie Blassie always used to make the best wife jokes.
We've had very successful marriages.
Yeah, Freddie had a lot more experience at it.
Well, you should. He's 8 times older than me.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Hasn't he been through a lot more wives, too?
I think he's at 4 now.
His social security number is 7.
And by the way, Brian, I quit subscribing to Penthouse because they pulled your article.
Oh, that's telling him.
write him a letter.
Actually, I really liked the writing in that magazine, but it kind of went downhill over the last couple months. So.
I saw your article in Hustler, and I loved it.
Oh, man. All right, guys, I'll let you guys get on to a couple other calls since you're running low on time.
Okay, let's go to Carlo. Carlo, what's up?
How you doing, guys?
Good.
Hey, doing good. Go ahead.
It's a pleasure to talk to you. I grew up watching you and Gorilla on primetime, and you guys were just hilarious.
Well, thank you. That was fun to do.
I have a few questions for you. First of all, I remember that time you had the debate with Ken Patera, and you were saying you were reading like something like a letter that somebody like wrote about him in jail or something like that, and they like beeped out just about everything you said, and I never had any idea what you were actually saying. Do you remember that? Like what you were saying?
Well, they probably did that to make it look like I was saying something, but I wouldn't have said anything like that.
So what were you actually, what you were actually saying?
I don't even know anymore.
Reading a grocery list or something?
I always thought it was something
by number
like
17. I don't know.
Yeah.
What was your favorite skit on Primetime Wrestling? I just got to ask real quick. You guys did a lot of really cool skits, like there was a Wild West one, and that was like my favorite part of the show.
I liked the thing Monsoon and I did in L.A. at Maria Del Rey on the boat.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like to do things. We like to do things on the road, like the Western we did in Tucson and stuff, because you're away from the office and you have more freedom.
Yeah.
It was fun.
And
there was no one there to produce us. We had a producer, but we all talked about it. We all worked it out ourselves, and there was no animosity or no problem. It was fun. And we all thought about what was going to be the best product for the TV, what the fans were really going to like. That's what we thought about. We didn't try to screw anybody.
Nothing self-serving?
No. If I'd had an ego and worried about myself, would I have put a suit on with a tail?
And also, Bobby...
maybe one night at the road, Ray, but never.
Carlo, go ahead.
Yeah, this is kind of silly, but I always wondered... like, you used to really crack me up, like, when you used to go on the telephone and go back and forth with Gorilla. And I remember a lot of times, like, you were on the phone and Gorilla would ask, like, who you're talking to, and you would say Miss Betty. I always wondered who like, Miss Betty was supposed to be or who came up with that. I just thought that was really funny.
No, Miss Betty's my secretary that handles all my business stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. It's a real person.
A real human.
Also,
I let you talk to her, but the duct tape hasn't come off yet.
Who do you what wrestling star over the past 20 years or so that was really big do you think is really overrated, and who would you say is underrated?
Underrated would probably like a Kurt Hennig. There's a lot of young guys coming right now that are underrated because you don't know the way they're featured. They're not promoted properly. They're not put over right. There's a lot of good talent there.
In WCW at the end, were there guys that you saw and you're going like, God, how are we missing the boat on this guy? Anyone in particular that pop into your head? Because I used to watch like that show all the time and just go, Jesus Christ, just wish they would do this, and this with this guy, and then it never happened.
Or guys like Regal that ended up in the WWF and you realize how utterly wasted they were.
Sure, look at Steve Austin.
Yeah.
There you go. Example right there.
Yeah.
And then when Okerlund and I came on board, they didn't know what to do with us. So that's their problem. That's why they're where they're at now.
No.
No.
Could you call my friend Ray a humanoid?
Ray, you're a humanoid.
Yeah, he's listening right now.
Okay.
Can you call me a humanoid? I was wanting you to call me a humanoid.
Now Ray's not there with you, right?
Well, he's listening right now.
Oh no. Okay, Ray and San Quentin, you're a humanoid.
Oh, Ray in West Haven, actually.
Oh my God!
It's close
You're
enough.
all humanoids. Every one of our callers today is a humanoid.
Not everyone, but anyway.
Brian actually means that.
Anyway, we're totally out of time, and I was going to say something. Hey, before we go, I'm going to ask you, remember the night when Warrior came back in somewhere in Connecticut, I think? Was it in Hartford or something? Or it might have been Massachusetts. But anyway, the night when Warrior came back and he did that interview, did you ever think that interview was going to end?
I never thought he was going to end. Let alone the interview.
I just remember.
Was that the night in WCW where he talked for about 25 minutes?
Yeah, he just kept talking and talking and talking. And
it never sounded like he was talking to me. It sounded like he was reading a Dell comic.
Oh, my God. Anyway, we were totally out of time. Bobby, I want to thank you very much. And
David, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. We're going to try to get you back for the Ray Stevens thing we're going to do next month. And,
are we going to do it on air or in San Francisco or where?
And we're just going to have you and some other guys, and we're just going to talk about Ray Stevens for 2 hours. It was Ric Flair's idea, because we did a show on, about a week or two ago it was 2 weeks ago, on Johnny Valentine. Ric Flair goes, we should just get a bunch of guys together and talk about Ray Stevens, because it ended up, in the middle of the show, him and Bastien just kept talking about Ray Stevens, and I was like, wait, we're supposed to talk about Johnny Valentine. So I just figured we'll do something for Ray Stevens. Because,
we'll have the Ray Stevens show and we'll talk about Valentine.
We could do that, too. All right. Anyway, we'll be back. I just want to thank Bobby for, of course, being here, and remind everyone we'll be back with Nick Bockwinkel tomorrow at 5.